What has happened is in the year 2024, like I don't think you can have a business any longer without a social media presence. I just don't. Well, hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. Excited to chat with you today. I think I say that every time I do a recording. I'm excited to chat with you today. I mean, what else would I say? Hi friends, welcome back to the podcast. I am dreading doing this episode. I just need to stop saying I'm excited to talk to you today. Just assume I'm always excited to talk to you. Okay. But I am excited about this episode. I've worked pretty hard on the notes for it. We're going to talk today about how to grow and run your business if you like really dislike social media. Okay. So first of all, I want you to know that if you're somebody that dislikes social media, I'm not going to like shame you in here. I personally love social media, but I know a lot of people out there who just feel like it's such a time suck and it's so combative and it's so divisive. And what else do I even have to add to a conversation? And, they don't want to be on the internet and on their phones all the time. And like, look, I get it. My husband, Jason, God bless that man. He has never been on social media. And so he'll get on Twitter on occasion and like look around. He started his Twitter account approximately 500 years ago. And by the way, I'm always going to call it Twitter. I'm never going to call it X. Okay. Can we just establish that? It's always going to be Twitter to me. I'm never going to call it X. Okay. It's dumb. Um, so can I say that? Can I call something dumb? Yes, it's my podcast. I can't. So anyhow, but he started a Twitter account. Like he figured this out recently, so many years ago that like his Twitter handle is just Allwood. Now, don't everybody go follow him because he's never tweeted once in his life, I don't think. And it'll freak him out. That's his only social media. And sometimes I look at him and I almost feel like a jealousy of sorts. And don't at me. And God, the Bible says we're not to be jealous. I know. Okay. I know. But I am just saying that sometimes I look at him and because he's not attached to social media at all, he's really very free in a lot of ways that the rest of us aren't. Right. And, he has just recently, in the last 6 months or whatever, launched Fairway Finest, his golf apparel brand. If you go follow him on Instagram, he's got, nearly 3,000 followers, but it's because our son Noah is taking care of that account. And then another guy, Lovitz that are working on that. But he's still not doing the social media for that. That's what I'm trying to say. What has happened is in the year 2024, like I don't think you can have a business any longer without a social media presence. I just don't, guys. And so I know that that's hard because it's like, how do you reconcile if you really dislike social media? How do you reconcile that with the fact that you almost have to be on social media if you're going to have a business? So I'm going to help you with that. And even if you love social media like me, I still think you're going to get something out of this episode. So just, stay tuned. Okay. So the way that I came about wanting to do this episode, by the way, I always like to give you guys just a little bit of background, is per a Voxer conversation that myself and Nell were having with one of our mastermind clients. Her name is Erin Cox. Her business is called The Gentle and Classical Press. So she basically sells curriculum and other resources to homeschoolers. So if that's your vibe, go find her on Instagram. It's The Gentle and Classical Press. I know she just hit like 23,000 followers on Instagram. And I know she also has got more followers so far in the first 3 months of this year than she did all of last year. So praise God for that, right? So anyhow, we're having this conversation with Erin, and with all of my mastermind ladies, we have a Voxer thread. Voxer is like a walkie-talkie app. It's fabulous that we do one-on-one coaching through that. So I did ask Erin's permission to kind of share with you what she had shared with us. And so she said that was fine. So here was Erin's rub. Okay. Erin's rub is that she wants to grow her business, but she really just dislikes being on social media. And she feels a lot of tension in her spirit because on one hand, she feels like God's telling her not to strive for like growth on social media. But then she has like that. The tension is, but also she knows that growing her social media is what helps her to accomplish their revenue goals, et cetera, right? And so we were having a conversation and a back and forth on Voxer about this topic. Like, do you just fully step away from social media? Do you just not post for months on end? What were her options? And what was interesting is she because she felt like she was feeling pulled to get off of it on one hand, but at the same time really felt like God's still wanting her to continue growing her business. Like, how can you do both of those things at once? It's nearly impossible, I think. So the Holy Spirit, in his absolute kindness, reminded her of an article that she read, and she sent the article to me. If you guys wanted to Google it, I'm going to give it to you. I know that she'd be happy that I give you the title of this. So it's called "No Little People, No Little Places." It was by someone named Francis Schaeffer. Okay, No Little People, No Little Places. So anyhow, the article is basically talking about how in the Bible Moses uses his rod. Okay, and she, in reading over the article that she had already read like previously, but the Lord, prompted her to reread it. She said she had a total aha moment because what she realized is she could just shift how she thought about social media. And if she would begin to think of social media almost in the context of like the rod that Moses had in the Bible, that the rod of Moses had become like the rod of God. And anything, once we give it to the Lord, is like a tool that God can use. Okay. So let me like paraphrase this for you guys in a different way. Okay. So I know that there are some of you listening who you also really dislike social media. You feel like it's a dumpster fire. There's so much arguing. There's so many opinions. It's so noisy. And sometimes, I know during election seasons, it gets worse. Like, newsflash, it's going to get worse the closer we get to November. And so what she had this aha moment about was, if I think of social media just as a tool, then that kind of released her from the pressure. And also, I think there was just, she was able to reconcile that inside of herself, that it's just something that God can use to grow her business, that she doesn't need to necessarily strive and things, but she also doesn't need to totally necessarily get off of it either. So here's kind of some things that I wanted to leave you with, okay? Because if you're someone who wants to grow your business, but simultaneously does not like social media, how can you use the tool, the rod? How can you use the tool? How can you use social media, but also like keep your peace internally, okay? And then I also want to give you just a couple ideas, because I do think that it's possible to grow your social media without you being on it, but I'll have to tell you how in just a second, okay? So let me give you some tips on how to use the tool, how to use the rod, how to use social media and still keep your internal peace, okay? So number one, you just don't want to be on there a whole lot of time. That's the key, because the more time you spend on social media, whether for personal or business, the more sometimes that will steal your peace. So last week, I literally taught the women inside of my inner circle one of my ninja tips. And I'll just give you like the very basics, because you're not in my inner circle. If you're in my inner circle, like you should be, if you're listening to this, then you would get like all the deeper tips. Okay. But basically, I was telling them, reuse content. Reuse your old content on social media. Go back through every day on my Facebook page. I literally go to my memories on my Facebook page for every previous year, because I've been on Facebook now as a business for 16 years. So a lot of times I can go back 9 years, 10 years, 6 years, 4 years, and see my posts from years previous. And I have posted every day, almost every single day for those 15 or 16 years. So I just am able to reuse sometimes old content. So then I'm not having to be on there and like trying to think of what I can post and scrolling for some inspiration. Like, reuse old content, just go straight to your memories. That is one ninja tip. Okay. And you can do the same, by the way, on your Instagram. Use old posts that are way down in the feed where like nobody's seeing them, right? So you can go down and find something there. You can even look at your memories on your Instagram stories and reuse those if you want. Okay. If you really dislike social media, then I suggest that you post to the two places at the same time, to Facebook and Instagram. But the majority of the time, I never suggest that. And I'll tell you why. Even though Meta, Facebook, and by the way, sorry, I'm getting some hand lotion here. And if you're watching me on YouTube, this is what they call my Holy Spirit hand lotion in all my coaching groups, right? Because they're all like, oh boy, anytime Jen starts putting on hand lotion, a lot of times I start to prophesy or I get really excited. One of the two, or simultaneously both. So there's that. Okay. So the rule of thumb is kind of this: even though Facebook owns or Meta owns Instagram, they're still like in competition to a degree. And it's really weird because it's like they're in competition in some ways, but also like melding together in this really incestuous way in other ways. Okay. But what has always happened in the past is if you post something on Instagram and you have your toggle button switched so that it says post it to Facebook too, it usually dies on Facebook. It usually does. And if you tag somebody on your Instagram post and you go ahead and post to Facebook at the same time, the tag never carries over. And so I can always tell when somebody has that turned on because it's like the words make sense and everything looks lovely on Instagram, but on Facebook, it's like, the tag doesn't work. You can tell it was written for another platform. All right. So, but if you're someone who's like, I really hate social media. And the only way you're going to get something on Facebook is by going ahead and posting on Instagram and Facebook at the same time. Then do that. Then just do that, okay? I want you to keep in mind that my rule of thumb for all of my clients is daily posts on Facebook. You can do it. And I have, lots of reasons why. Essentially, what you need to know is this: Facebook needs to see you as a legit business. Consistency is the number one thing that Facebook is going to use to determine whether or not you are a legit business or not. If your reach is in the dump, it's possibly because you're not posting enough. So post more on Facebook, okay? Daily, daily, daily. 3 times a week on your Instagram feed if you can. I don't always hit that, but I usually always hit 2 times a week. And then every single day on your Instagram stories. And I do like for you to connect your Instagram stories to your Facebook stories. Just know though that people can't click on the links and it's very annoying. So if you're watching my stories on Facebook, a lot of times people will send me a DM. I can't click on that link, or when I click on it, nothing happens. It's because even though Facebook's trying to like meld those two components together, it's still, a lot of things are unclickable on your Facebook stories. Okay, so number one tip was to recycle content, okay? Number two tip for you, if you really dislike social media, is just set a timer so that you're like, okay, I'm going to spend 30 minutes on Monday afternoon and I'm going to schedule some social media for the next couple of days. Like set a timer. That way you know like when your start and stop is. So if you're somebody that really dislikes social media, you can get in, you can get out. You can get in, you can get out, okay? I highly suggest, especially if your days are busy and if you dislike social media, to schedule your content. There was a time when I posted everything on the fly. On the fly just means, as the day is progressing. That was back when I had my painting company. It was so easy to do that, you guys, because there was always content. I would be at a client's house and I'd snap a picture and upload it to Facebook right there. And do you like what we're doing on these walls? Or I would be, loading ladders in the back of my truck and I'd post a picture of that on Instagram. And, I need a bigger truck. What do you guys think? Like that was easy. Now that I have to think about content more because I'm in an industry that's not visual, right? For those of you that are in an industry that's visual, you paint something, you decorate something, you DIY anything, you crochet, you sew, like those are all some of the more creative industries that I coach women in. Like content is easy for you. And so when you come into my group and you're like, I don't know what to post, I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Because I'm pretty sure you've been crocheting a blanket all week. Why aren't you just posting pictures all week long of said blanket, of the fabric that you're using, of the tools that you're using, of the decisions you had to make between this and that? Like that's so much easier than being in the business coaching space and having to come up with content. I promise you. I promise you. This is why it's been so easy for me to grow like my Bougie on the Beach and Bougie in the Desert Instagram accounts, because it's visual. I can post pictures of the beach all day long. I'm not having to sit down. Like business coaching is just a different component. And those of you that are in the coaching space, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I know you're nodding your head with me right now. So you can come up with content. Okay. Let me just say that first of all, if you're in a very visual business. So when I had my painting company, it was easy for me to post on the fly. Now, because I have to give more thought, I can't just post, do you like this color of green or this color of green? That content no longer works for business coaching. So I have to like sit and be more intentional with my wording, with my angle, with am I going to make a reel or what have you? And so it takes me a longer amount of time to do content. So now I have to really rely a lot more on scheduling. Okay, let me say a couple things about scheduling content. Number one, don't schedule out more than a week at a time. And the reason is you don't know what's going to happen next week in the world. So you could have a post, scheduled for 10 days, 2 weeks from now, and there is a tragedy, there is something major that happens in the world, and you don't want to seem like you're out of touch. You don't want things. You just just trust me on this. I've literally seen content, you guys, where someone had scheduled way far out. They probably used a social media company of some sort, and then they passed away and their content was still posting. And so a week is my rule of thumb. All right. If you need help with scheduling content, and you are not using my Equip 360 software, I totally suggest you go to equipped360.com. It's spelled EQUIPT 360.com. And we have a social media scheduler in there, and and you can work on building your email list and everything else inside of Equip 360. So schedule your content. That will help you to be able to stay off social the rest of the time. Okay. Another option for you is you could just hire somebody to do it for you. The problem with that is, because we have tried to do that here at Tmall, we've tried to bring people in to really help me with my content. I always dislike it. And it's no offense to them. It's just that nobody words things exactly like I would. And I feel like I can read the words and I can tell it's not me who wrote it. And then I think, well, then all my followers are going to be able to tell I didn't write it either. And so I really dislike hiring outside companies. However, if the choice for you is hire somebody to do your social media or don't do it at all, I would 100% hire somebody to do your social media. Okay. And then the other option, of course, is, and this is why I had brought up Jason earlier also, is you can grow your social media and you can sell things without, okay, so you can work on growing your social media with ads, or you can sell whatever it is that you need to sell without working on growing your social media by using ads as well, which is one of the things Jason is doing. So he's got ads running on Facebook and Instagram right now for Fairway Finest, his golf apparel company, and using that in lieu of really trying to do posting to grow his social media platforms. Does that make sense? And that's still an option. Like if you're like, I hate posting on social, okay, that's fine. But in order to sell whatever, program you offer, paid group you have, consulting you're doing, product you're selling, you're going to have to get it in front of people somehow. So either you have to pay for ads, and I have like 2 women in my mastermind who do ads, and a dear friend who do ads. So that people are running a lot of ads. So you either have to pay for ads or you have to grow organically. Those are your only two options. And to grow organically, you have to be on social media. You have to be posting. You have to be spending time in your DMs. So you have to like pick your poison. Would you rather pay? That's fine. That's what Jason's doing. Or would you rather like be on social media even though you hate social media? Does that make sense? Like that's kind of where we're at. I really think where we are at in 2024 in terms of growing a business. And so I know if you're listening and you really dislike social media, like I get it, but here's what I want to say about that. I think social media is still the very best, cheapest way to grow your business. I still do. And what I really want you to remember is that nothing in and of itself is evil. Like social media is not evil. I try to be so careful about what I speak over the very platforms that allow me to live the life that I am currently living, right? I mean, if I didn't have 365,000 followers on Facebook and, 100,000+ followers on Instagram, I wouldn't have the business that I have today. So, we're supposed to make sure we're not cursing and blessing out of the same mouth, right? Like I'm so grateful for all of its flaws and faults, for Facebook, for Instagram, for Pinterest. I have over 100,000 people following me on Pinterest. That has allowed my business to grow to what it is today. And so social media in and of itself is not evil. It's what people do with it. It's always what people do with it. It's like something comes out and it's great. And then the enemy, tries to take and pervert it. That's just the way of the enemy of our soul. But social media in and of itself is not evil. It's the people that are behind the keyboards that are corrupting something that could also be used for good. And so remember, if all the people who want to use social media for good leave, then what's left also, right? So there's that. And so I think if you could begin to think of social media as like, the rod in the Bible, which Aaron was so great to point that out, or think of it as just like, it's a means to an end. It's just, I want my business to go, so therefore I have to do this until I can figure out a different way. Like that is so helpful just to think of social media in a different light. And then the last thing that I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned here is, God's been speaking so much to me in the last couple of years about the idea of stewardship. and just really like stewarding, taking good care of the things that he has given us on this side of heaven. So, my children, my marriage, the money in our bank account, the house that we live in, but also like when God gives us a business, because I mean, is this something that I was smart enough to start? I mean, you could say, yeah, but really it was God working through me and I'm just a funnel. I mean, and I'm not trying to over spiritualize things, but if you have a business right now, you just need to know like God gave you that. I always have to remind myself too, and Jen, he can take it right away as well. And so like, what does good stewardship for my business look like? For me, I know that stewarding this business well, and this business, is it about taking care of my family financially? Yes, to a degree, for sure. But also, like, I know that the business God has given me is more to be a person who is exhorting other women, cheering on other women, teaching other women how they're able to make a financial impact on their family and be able to do it while they're still at home and present and all those things, right? And so that's like looking at my business through an eternal lens versus just carnal eyes. So through an eternal lens, my hope is that, with over 20,000 women in the last decade, that there have been women that have completely changed the financial trajectory of their family, that have been able to get out of 9 to 5s that they hated, that have been able to, stay home and raise kids while they're present with them at home. Like that's the good stuff for me. That's the stuff that matters. And so in order to do that, in order for me to teach women how they can do that so that there's change in their family on this side of heaven, like I pretty much have to be on social media. And so, for me, that means like good stewardship of my business means I'm going to have to use the tools that God has given me. And one of those tools is social media. And so I don't know if that will help you today to think of it that way. But, sometimes I think we can get to where we're like, I just don't want to. I don't want to use this. I don't want to do that. And to some degree, I think that's fine. But when it comes to social media, I'm hopeful that this maybe just like presented something in a slightly different light, gave you some ideas, maybe made you think about it in just a little bit different way. And honestly, like if you struggle with social media, please go get in my inner circle group. My creators inner circle is where we have monthly coaching on online marketing, which is using social media and an email list. And then you've got my software, Equip 360, where you can do social media scheduling, you can build your email list, you can make landing pages, all of those things. So if you need a link for that, let me know. Otherwise, you can go to equip360.com. Leave me a comment below if you're watching here on YouTube, or send me a DM on Instagram if you're listening on your podcast app. So, all right, friends, thank you so, so much. Thank you to Erin for letting me use your story here on the podcast. Again, go check her out at the Gentle and Classical Press if you're interested in homeschooling curriculum and resources. So God bless you guys. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Easton, I'm parched. Thirsty. Also, though, huh?